Okay, final carburetor update. So I've had a problem with these carbs. The bike just wouldn't run with them, just wouldn't run at all. I've checked them. They appeared that there weren't any blockages. They're fairly new carbs. They're not that worn. So, but the bike simply wouldn't run with those carbs on. So in the end, I sent them off to a chap in Gosport, Kev Triall, and I'll put his phone number, contact details in the blurb underneath this video. And he worked on them, so he drilled out the pilot jet. So on this side of the carburetor, where the tickle pin is, you've got the air screw. And on the other side of the carburetor, you've got that hole, but it's blanked off. So it's a bit like this tube here, which is for a tick over adjuster, but we don't use that on a Trident because we have a separate tick over adjuster on the gantry, so that's never drilled out. So you'll find on the other side of this carburetor, you'll find another one of those and another one of these blanked off. So what he's done is he's drilled through the blank on the other side of the carburetor, so you can get the advantage of that is you can actually clear out the pilot jet properly. You can get right the way through it, and he put a blanking plug in. And he also re-sleeved the throttle valves because they were worn, and he checked the throat levels, which he thought were fine, but he checked them, and there was one that was very slightly out, but that was it. Anyway, so I got them back, and I was a bit dubious because I had a word with him, and he said he didn't think the carbs were blocked. I didn't think they were blocked because I flushed them through with carb cleaner, and carb cleaner came out of the holes that I thought it should come out of. But anyway, I thought, well, all I can do is put the carbs back in now. So I put the carbs back in, and joy of joys, the bike now runs fine. So it was a problem with the carbs, but what was the problem? I'm still not 100% sure, but I rang Kev, I had a chat with him. He said he didn't think the carbs were blocked when he drilled those holes out, but he said it could have been. He said the other thing that it could have been were that the slides were quite worn, the throttle slides, despite these carbs being quite relatively new, and that therefore it was. And what happens then if they're worn? You get air going around the throttle valve. That means that you don't get a vacuum in the venturi because air's getting past. If you don't get a vacuum in the venturi, then it doesn't suck the petrol up from the float chamber, because of course the petrol is actually being sucked upwards. It doesn't sort of drip in, it gets sucked upwards by the vacuum. And if there isn't a vacuum in the venturi, then it won't set the petrol up. So he's thinking maybe it was that, because the one thing, the bike would run on full choke, but it wouldn't run off choke. So I'm thinking maybe it's a combination that maybe the pilot jets were slightly blocked, and also that the throttle slides were worn. But they're all now been re-sleeved now with a stainless steel slider, so they shouldn't wear anything like as much as before. We've drilled out that hole in the other side of the carb, so if over winter, say, the fuel comes up and blocks those pilot jets again, then you can. It's a bit of a faff, but at least you can do it. You can take the carbs off, unscrew those little plugs from the other side of the carb, and clean the carb out properly. But it's a bit of an every day's a school day, because I was sure those carbs were okay. I cleaned them out, and there was a bit of and I couldn't see a blockage. There was a bit of play in the throttle valves, but the owner said, insisted that they were pretty new, so there shouldn't be that much wear. But what I'm telling you is what I found is that we've done the carbs, we've drilled them out, and we've re-sleeved the valves, and now the carbs run fine. They react really, really well to screwing the air screw in, which is always generally the sign that the pilot jet's blocked. If you screw the air screw in or out and it doesn't affect the revs that tick over, then that's a pretty sure sign that the pilot jets are blocked. And they didn't seem to respond that well before. The trouble is that as the engine wouldn't actually run before, I can't, because I was trying to adjust them like on full choke, because that's the only way that engine would run. So I can't say whether they were responding really or not before. Anyway, they're done and the bike's running, and there you go. What appeared to be carbs that were fine weren't. So that's a big lesson for me, because I cleaned them all out. They seemed okay. They might have a bit wear, but they were okay. They weren't. So we've done those two major things, which is drill out the pilot to blank on the opposite side and re-sleeve the throttle valves. And one way or the other, that's cured the problem. Hurrah. So I'm not going to start the bike now, because I'm going to do another video immediately after this, which is sort of covering the final rebuild video, and I'll be starting the bike in that video. Okay. Anyway, carbs are sorted. Hurrah.